Hey fam, welcome to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly about real estate. Have you ever wondered how you can take your asset and save some money for taxes? Have you ever wanted to run a boutique hotel and not know what that entitles? My next guest here has done exactly that. She's gone anywhere from being a front desk manager to being an operations manager, and now she is helping people save money on taxes using a strategy called cost segregation. So help me welcome to the stage a new friend of mine, Belinda.
Hi, everyone. It's
One of
Belinda
these
and
days I'm gonna get
Vivian
this
this
thing
morning
straight.
because Vivian, she's always here when I'm on a Zoom.
That's okay. We're pet friendly on this channel, so it's all good.
Good.
So, Belinda, we always like to start the episodes with having the guests share who they are so people will realize why they should be sitting here listening. So, can you share your story with us?
Certainly. So my name is Belinda Pratti. I am I'm a former TC and former
District
Northeast
coordinator.
regional leader within top tier TC. We actually just passed the torch last week to our newly appointed leaders. So congratulations to the two of them. What else? As Jose said, I was a former operations manager in the hotel world, everywhere from motels to boutique hotels to 2,000 room resorts. And now I'm in the investing space, land investor myself. And I work with investors and commercial building owners in the cost segregation world.
Awesome. Can you explain what cost segregation is? Because some people may not know that it's a buzzword for some people, and they don't really go even an inch deep in that. So, can you kind of share what cost segregation is and how people can benefit from it?
Certainly. Cost segregation, in the short of it, is taking a commercial building, and that includes single family rentals, and breaking them down by reverse engineering them into their depreciable buckets, right? So everything depreciates at different rates. And as someone who is owning a commercial building or getting income or revenue from a building, you should be able to take the benefit of depreciating the short life things up front. So that's what cost segregation is. It's actually more of an engineering function than it is an accounting function.
And how long does it? Do you know the length of time it takes to? If I were to hire you today, how long would it take for me to get a report on what I can utilize for deductions or
Certainly.
depreciation?
CSSI is the company that I work with for the cost segregation studies. And depending on the time of year, right now they are not as busy because we've just finished the rush of the people who have filed their extensions, right? All of their studies are done. And so it would take between 2 and 4 weeks. In busy seasons, it would be between 4 and 6 weeks.
Okay. And most people are familiar with the 27.5 years depreciation of a house. So would a cost segregation be in adjunction to that or in place of?
It would be adding to. Here's a tip. If you have an Airbnb and if you have a house or a building that is used specifically for Airbnb, that's considered a commercial building, not a residential commercial building. So that one actually has a depreciation service life of 39 years.
Ooh,
Yes.
I like that.
And so what it does, whether it's 27 and a half or 39 years, let's say, for example, you've got paint, fixtures, lighting, copper piping, right? All of those things are inside. Those would be 5-year depreciable assets. If you have a parking lot or outside lights, for example, like in an RV park, for example, those are 15-year depreciable. There's also a 7-year category, right? So it's taking all of your assets and saying, okay, this you can take up front, this you can take up front. And as it turns out, usually about 30 to 40% of a building is depreciable upfront instead of at 27 and a half years or 39 years, right? So for the 27 and a half and 39, we're looking at your roof, your HVAC system, your foundational things, stuff like that.
Right. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, going from working as an office or not office, but an operations manager to a TC to cost seg doesn't seem like a very natural progression of investing or jobs. So, how did
That's
you go
true.
from being a tell us a little bit of some stories about being an operator in the hotel world and then
Sure.
deciding to get into TC.
Absolutely. So my first hotel job I got when I was 17 out of high school, and it was at the front desk. And mind you, this was what, 1996? I was making like $12 an hour back in
Hey, that
1996
was a
being
lot of money back then.
17.
People
So I
don't
said,
realize when I was their
"Mhm,
age, I think the minimum wage was like $4.35. Okay.
that's right." Yeah, it was. And I managed to snag myself a job making $12 an hour, which quickly became $18 an hour 2 years later as
Nice.
I progressed up in the hotel world. And because I was putting myself through school and I wasn't financing the whole thing with loans. I was like, I need money to pay for half my tuition. I also did a study abroad, so I had to pay for that too. So I was like, oh, this is a great place to do this because my hours are set. I can leave work at work and go to school and then be in school. So that's how I got into the hotel world because my mother was absolutely not going to allow me to work in retail or fast food.
Okay.
That was the one rule. When I was in high school, my job was to be a student. And then
Right.
when I was out, it was like, you're going to have to pay for school. And so it was either my parents said, we'll either pay for your car or we'll pay for your tuition. So I said, okay, get me the car so I can go back and forth to school. So my mom is Korean. I'm half Korean and she's a typical tiger mom. So she was like, retail out of the question.
Right.
Fast food out of the question. Find a different job. So hotels it was. And it started my love of just servicing. That's a terrible word. Serving people.
I knew what you meant, but they didn't.
So if you think about it, as a TC, the I always said that TCing is very much like hospitality. And
Right.
in the hospitality realm, service is defined as identifying someone's needs and tending to them before they even have to say anything about it.
I like that.
And in the TC realm, that's exactly what I did. So there were 1,000 moving parts in the background that the investor may or may not know about, right? Of course, they're CC'd on everything, but doesn't mean that they read everything, right? That's why I'm there.
Right.
And so it was like, oh, I see this is missing. Let me handle it before it even becomes an issue. So if you think about it, the two things are very similar.
Yeah. Now that you put it that way, of course.
Yeah, they're very similar. And I'm multilingual. I speak 4 languages, so that's been hugely helpful in the investor space. I'm able to expand my network to lots of different groups of people and help them out. And then how does that transition into cost segregation? Obviously, it's a buzzword, just like you said. So, being in this space, I heard it often.
Right.
And there was a young man that myself and my co-ex Northeast regional leader brought in to talk to us about cost segregation, to educate us on what it was. And that was last year sometime. And he's been on me the whole time. You really should get into cost seg because you're really good at teaching people things and you seem to enjoy it. So that's really what cost seg advising is. It's teaching people about that benefit.
Sure.
And the more I heard it, the more it made sense to me, the more I was like, "Why doesn't everybody know this?" Like, it seems like a no-brainer to me. Why wouldn't you
Right.
take this benefit? So, that's why I eventually transitioned because he was absolutely right. I do enjoy educating I used to be an educator. I was a Spanish and French teacher for a long time in a different lifetime. That's what I was going to school for. That's what the hotel money paid for.
So you just told us three of your languages: English, French, and Spanish. So what's the
No,
fourth
I
one?
actually no longer speak French. Isn't that something? It started out as a major of mine, um,
Okay.
but I speak very little French. Like I can get by if I were a tourist, but I
Sure.
speak Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, and English.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Portuguese. There's is that still considered one of the like Latin or Romance languages?
it
Portuguese.
is. Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yeah,
Yeah. One of the languages like Brazil speaks Portuguese.
they do.
Okay.
They do. Yeah,
That is crazy.
yeah. It's pretty cool.
And I should have known Korean because of your mom, but I didn't put that one together.
Yeah, a lot of people don't because I don't immediately present as Korean. But if my mother were sitting right next to me, I'm
Yeah.
basically the brown curly-haired version of her.
And she'll tell everybody that.
Yeah, she does.
I'm sure. That's funny. So what is it that you want people to know about cost seg? Because you said that a lot of people hear the buzzword, and when you first got into it, you're like, I don't know why people are not taking advantage of this. So what should people know so that they like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I need to find somebody that I or come find you so that I can take advantage of this type of service.
It's a good question. There's a few things. As I've been working with investors and having a lot of one-on-ones, which is how you and I met, right?
Yep.
What I find, there are some misconceptions about what cost seg is and what it isn't, right? They say, my CPA does it. No, your CPA doesn't do it.
No.
Your CPA is not equipped to do it because it is an engineering function. So the IRS does prefer specialized people do this, and engineers is part of that. And is your CPA getting on a plane to go to your property and take pictures? No. We are.
Right.
Two, it's not expensive. So expensive is a word that I used to struggle with. And this year in 2025, I decided I'm going to use expensive, the word expensive, exactly the way it's meant to be used and not with its negative connotation, right?
Okay.
Because negative connotation is a lack mindset. Oh, that's out of reach, or that is something that I cannot pay. No, expensive means there is a cost and it's not worth the value. So being a linguist, words mean matter to me. So cost
Right.
segregation is not expensive. There's tremendous value, and the higher your building cost basis, the more your savings, right? So the higher your ROI. So we've seen ROIs as high as 20 to 1. So $20 in savings for every dollar that you spend on the study.
So let
It's
me
not
stop you there
expensive.
for a second. So
Sure.
for the people watching this that are like newbies, ROI
Mhm.
is return on investment. So that's the return that you get for, like she was saying, for every dollar that you're spending, you're actually getting $20. So it's like a 20x of your
Yes.
investment. So
Yes,
go ahead.
absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping and explaining that because I do tend to get into the jargon a lot.
No, I'm learning, right? Because again, people like who's your audience? And I'm like, hopefully it's a vast audience, and I want to make sure that I keep everybody involved, right? Those that may not understand what ROI is, and those that who do but may not understand the benefit of. They've heard the term, but they're not really sure how that benefits them.
And that's what makes your podcast so successful and long-standing, right?
Yeah,
Because
thank
you
you.
do take the time to consider who is my audience and be sure to give them all the value that they can in exchange for the time that they are spending watching and listening and engaging. So, thank you. Another thing that I would love for people to know about cost segregation is that there is one aspect of cost segregation that is a use it or lose it benefit. And that has to be done in the same year that the renovations or replacements were done. And that's a part of cost segregation called partial asset disposition. And that's basically double dipping, right? So let's say actually this actually happened to one of my clients. He has a hotel and in and he so this is a good, bad, and ugly story, right?
Go
Um
for
he
it.
replaced the roof in his hotel, and he did not take the cost segregation study in the year that he replaced the roof in the hotel, and therefore he lost access to that particular benefit. But if he had done the study and taken the partial asset disposition benefit in that same year, what he would have been able to do is take all of the rest of the service life of depreciation for that roof, the one that was in the trash, in addition to deducting the costs of the new roof. And so he was in about year, I want to say he was in year 15 of that roof. So there
Okay.
were, what is that? The math is not mathing for me, but I think 19 more years left or 14 more years left to reach 39 years.
Right.
That's a tremendous benefit.
Absolutely.
But the IRS says that aspect, the partial asset disposition, is use it or lose it. Cost segregation in general, if you take a study this year and you have, let's say, 133,000 in deductions. This is actually happening for another client of mine in Arizona on an Airbnb. She's, "Oh, I don't have to take this all at once." Of course not. You can take that 133,000 and break it up over the next few years, right? Because Your revenue is obviously gonna go higher and higher, so take what you need this year to zero out your tax liability, take what
Right.
you need next year. With 133,000, she could be holding on to that for 5 years,
Yeah.
but she did the
That's
study
crazy.
once. So you see the value.
Absolutely. So you bring up a good or a point that I want to ask you a question about. Is like, how often should a study be done?
So you do a study usually one time, and then you'll do a study again anytime you have a major I'm
Rehab or
sorry, I'm blanking out in English, replacement.
yeah.
Replacement or repair of a major asset. So let's say you're fixing the roof or you're doing a massive internal renovation. Those are the years that you're gonna run a cost seg study.
Now, is that if you do a roof replacement? Let's say I do a cost seg today,
Mm,
right? And I have 10 more years left on the current roof, and let's say in year 7 from now, I
mhm,
decide that I need a new roof, a new HVAC system because they're getting old, right? They're mechanicals and they're old.
right.
Do I have to do a full cost tag, or is there a way to do just on the
The
items that are being
renovation side.
replaced?
So the IRS says in order to access the partial asset disposition, we need to know how the rest of your assets, depreciable assets, are categorized. So
Gotcha.
you do them both together.
Gotcha. Now, when you and I talked the other day, you talked about, I want to say, is it recapture?
Yes, recapture.
Can you explain what that is and how people can benefit from that if use
A lot of people would say that's not a benefit, right? They say, "Well, okay, I got all this savings up front, but then I have to pay it back."
right?
Yes, even if you don't do a cost segregation study and you're just doing straight line depreciation, which is what most of your tax preparers and CPAs are doing for you still have to pay that money back. That's something that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
So there's recapture either way, whether you do the cost seg study or whether you don't. The IRS is, yeah, let me get that benefit back. You were supposed to use that and invest it. It wasn't to save and then go on vacation with. So, yeah, either way, you have to pay it back. But if you have your buildings in a trust, that's one way to skirt that. Another way is to use that money and buy in a 1031 exchange your next property, right?
Okay.
So you do that, you go down the road, you go down the road, you go down the road.
Right.
The recapture then is not really an issue. And especially if you're using that money to buy another building and you cost seg that, the savings from that really balances everything out in the end, depending on how many properties you have.
See, this is fascinating to me because I feel like now I'm becoming part of the 1% that know how to utilize the tax law against in their favor instead of giving it to Uncle Sam. I love it.
It's so true, right? Because Uncle Sam is no one's favorite charity.
Although
Yet it goes
it's somebody's favorite bank, right? Because a lot of us pay
absolutely.
extra into our taxes, hopefully to get that refund check in the beginning of the year. But us as entrepreneurs, we know better than that, right? Why should we
Yep.
have money sitting there not working for us?
Right,
We find
exactly.
ways to keep our money in our pocket so that we can reinvest it and then make a better return on that money, right?
Absolutely, positively, you hit it right on the head, right? Because people say, "Oh, that recapture's not makes it not worth it." I tell you what, you're either paying a large check to Uncle Sam or a smaller check to CSSI to
Right.
be able to use the value of those dollars you save today, because 27 years from now, that dollar is not going to be the same. 5 years ago, remember what a dollar was worth?
Yeah.
So it's the present value of
Watch
money
you.
that you are able to use today.
Let's see. What else? What other benefits have we not brought up that cost egg helps people?
It's a really good question. I feel like we've gone over so much of it already.
Right? I know. I'm trying to
Um,
think. Let's ask this question then.
sure.
You brought up Airbnbs as a commercial, right? Which I didn't
Mhm.
even think about it that way. What different assets does it make sense to do a cost egg on? It may not be if you had an
That's a good
office
question.
building, or do you have a business, or if you had a multifamily. Like, which assets do you think does it work best for, and maybe some that it may not make sense for? How about that?
Sure. So that's a difficult question. Not
Right?
difficult, but it's
Loaded
um
question.
it's a question with varied answers because it will depend on who it is. And I'll give you some
Sure.
examples. I have a client right now in Pennsylvania who is doing a cost seg study, and
Mhm.
her asset is the cost value or the cost basis was something like 135,000.
Okay.
She is able to save about 12,000 from she's able to deduct 12,000 from her income for her taxes for next year. That
Okay.
is valuable to her
Right.
because she has a W-2, the spouse is a real estate professional, they can reduce their income that they report by 12,000. That might not be much to some, but it's a lot to others. And what's that costing her? Like 10% of that, not even. It's like it's costing her very little. And she's, listen, I need every deduction I can get next year. So some people would look at a house that's the cost basis is only 135,000 and they're like, that's not worth it. But it is to her. That's why I say that's a varied answer,
Let me
right?
ask you one question before you move on. What does the term cost basis mean? Because some people may not understand what you're referring to when you say
Thank you. Once again, me with the jargon. Thank you for slowing my roll.
that. No, you're good.
So cost basis is the cost that you paid for the house minus the value of the land
Okay.
because land is not depreciable. So there's an asset that you cannot use cost segregation on. It would not make any sense. Just land.
Yeah, I was like, what would you write off? I'm like, unless you had,
Exactly.
I don't know, a pump or I don't know.
Exactly. But RV parks, even though it is land, there are improvements and there are
Right.
systems that are there. And so that is actually a great asset for cost segregation. Hotels, motels, office buildings, those are excellent for cost seg.
Cars.
Buildings. I am so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Let me get a sip of water.
Please.
No, it has to be buildings because it's an incentive that the IRS gives to US citizens who pay federal taxes. It's an incentive that the IRS gives to US citizens who are paying federal taxes to own real estate,
Okay. So let me
right?
ask you this question
Sure.
because in our community we have folks that are like from Canada. They have
Uh-huh.
I-10s. If you have an I-10, does that mean that you can't utilize this or take advantage of this, or is it strictly just U.S. citizens?
If you're paying federal taxes with that I-10, then yes.
Okay.
But it also applies to I remember you telling me that someone you know has just opened a hotel in Ecuador.
Yep.
She can actually cost seg that hotel in Ecuador.
How would she do that? Or
The
how would
same
somebody who's
process.
considering, or let me, I think the question I want to ask is
Sure.
most people would think it's an asset outside of the United States. So how is an investor who is investing in either businesses or properties outside the United States able to take advantage of that for their US taxes? I think that's the best question.
Sure. As long as they're still paying taxes here, and because they have to have a business in order to even own that property, and they're still
Right.
paying taxes on it. So therefore, it's still a benefit that is available to them.
That's
And
awesome.
so at CSSI, we've done studies in other countries, Panama, Mexico, Luxembourg, even.
Ooh, okay.
So
That's cool.
yeah.
What you and I talked, and of course, the name of this channel is Good, Bad, and Ugly. Can you share either whether it be your TC, your hotel management, or even maybe a cost seg that may went south, or a good and bad story about any of those?
So we did discuss the one client who had the hotel who did the
Yeah,
renovations and then did not take the benefit. And that's unfortunately, he lost that bit, the partial asset disposition
sure.
bit, which is unfortunate. But he was able to cost seg the rest of his property, which is good. So there's still at least that. So I would say that's a bad and ugly. And something that went terribly wrong in a hotel once that I was managing. I was the assistant general manager of a hotel near the BWI airport. And unbeknownst to us, the FBI was investigating and I don't know if this is appropriate, but they were investigating a trafficking ring.
Okay.
And the trafficking ring had checked into our hotel,
Ooh,
and we did not know because we didn't even know that that was going on.
that was a
And so our
thing.
yeah, and so there was a group of soldiers, they were in active duty army uniform because we were very close to Fort Meade, so
Sure.
that happened all the time. They checked in with active duty ID. I'm a daughter of a combat veteran, so I know what that looks like. And they checked in, and within 15 minutes, we're getting calls from the 3rd floor, people saying, "There's some guys with long guns, and they're telling people to get down, and they've got long guns." And I was like, "What the heck is going on? What are you talking about?" Oh, I head
Yeah.
up to the 3rd floor, elevator dings, doors open. Sure enough, it's the same guys that we had checked in. "Get down, everybody stay in your rooms." Turns out they were FBI and they were undercover.
Wow.
Yes. And he came down after everybody was arrested. At this point, there's helicopters, there's mad number of law enforcement vehicles outside. I've got my engineering guy, chief of engineering on the roof just watching everything happen. My GM is on her 10th anniversary honeymoon trip in Hawaii. So it's just me holding down the fort, 152 rooms. And he comes down and he apologizes. He shows me his actual badge. "I'm so sorry. We could not give you any warning because we just got word. We've been following them for 4 months and they just unexpectedly stopped here instead of going to the city where we thought they were going to be going.
Right.
So we had to take the chance and we got them, which is
Right.
fantastic. That's always great when you can take out the bad guys, especially when they're doing really bad things like that. But yeah, things like that happen in hotels more often than you
And the
would
crazy
imagine.
thing about it is, had they not been following them, you would never known that you had
Exactly.
that type of clientele in your
Yep,
hotel that are just maybe passing through because they didn't want to keep pushing on to the another city that they were expected to be in.
absolutely. Yeah, we would have never known because, yeah, we are trained to see certain things, but they also know that we are trained to see certain things, so they don't show
Right.
certain things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that was a crazy story.
I like it though. It's fun and exciting to realize that when you're investing things that you have to understand that there are some things that you may not even thought about when you invest in these assets. What could possibly happen, right?
So true.
No, nobody
Yeah.
knows if you buy a rental that FBI might knock down your door because somebody's using your garage to hide stolen cars. Sex traffic
Mhm.
ring on one of your floors. I'm like, yeah, we have respectable clientele here. We don't have people doing that. Lo and behold, yes, you do. That's just
Yeah.
it's very eye opening, I guess I would say.
It is. Yeah, because most of our clientele, we had so many government agencies and tech businesses all around us. So that was the majority of our clientele. People we
Right.
see every week who are there for conferences, for sales calls, meetings. And we always had soldiers. So that was nothing. That didn't raise any flags. That's just a normal Thursday until it
Well,
wasn't.
exactly. And this is, and again, a story to tell. I love having stories to tell.
Yeah.
If there was one parting word of advice you give somebody that's watching this, that to help them either improve on their business or help them save money, what would that be?
Of course, I'm going to have to speak in terms of cost seg, but I
Of
will say
course, that's where I
this.
was hoping you'd go. That was the what they call it, the meatball. That was a layup for you.
I should probably watch more basketball.
I was just trying to give you something easy to swing at. How's that? Is that better?
Thank you. Or baseball, or any sports
There
for
you go.
that matter. One, I would say pay for the TC. Pay for the TC. I another ugly story. I've been working with this one client since October of last year
Mhm.
because she bought a property in Georgia subject to and did not have a TC and had none of the paperwork. None of the paperwork.
Right.
Like not even login information. That could have been a nightmare story, and it still is because these sellers can take off. This seller went to Panama
Oh, wow.
and then Turkey. We've been
Goodness.
playing catch up, right? So pay for the TC. And two, get the cost seg study. If you want to do a try before you buy, hit me up right here or right there, or wherever it is. And we can do a no cost, no obligation, like an estimate. So you can see a range of how much you'd save and how much that would cost you.
Awesome.
And you'd be surprised it doesn't cost as much as you think. Obviously, you're going to pay for quality. CSSI has been doing this for 23 years, 55,000 studies, zero audits triggered.
That's a tremendous track record. So yeah.
Tremendous. And $10 billion in tax savings for the clients in 23 years.
Yes.
Billion with a B, like B for Belinda.
I love it. So you got your little QR code above you there.
I
How
do.
else can somebody, if they wanted to get in touch with you or follow your journey, how else could they do that?
Right here. Belinda Guides Investors on Instagram. All of my info is there in my link bio.
Awesome. Linda, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge of three different industries, right? TC, transaction coordinators, your operational experience in hotel, and telling us a wonderful story. And then, of course, cost seg. I hope everybody who's watching this has learned as much as I have. If you own an investment property and you're not taking advantage of potential tax savings, reach out to Belinda. She'll hook you up. Like she said, she'll give you an estimate or a quote. We'll see what you would be looking at for expanding or spending and potentially saving, and see if it's worth your while to keep moving forward to
Absolutely.
get more tax deferment slash benefits. So if that sounds good to you, you want to put more money in your pocket and stop giving it to Uncle Sam, call Belinda. She'll hook you up. She'll get you their cost seg done. And again, Belinda, thank you so much for giving me your time today and sharing your
Thank you,
knowledge.
Jose.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And to the audience, we'll see you on the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jose. So much. We'll talk soon.
Bye, everyone.